Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here to review John Wick Chapter 4. Now, for starters, I should just give a little history on what I thought about the other movies in the series, because it kind of plays into what I thought about this one in comparison to those and everything. So part one, I thought was a pretty good movie. It was a simplistic but good film, and I liked the story. I liked the characters for the most part. It just had a little bit of like a mid quality to me, and then the second one for me really picked things up. And even though there was some questionable storytelling in the second one at certain points, I really felt like it amped things up to a better level, and I felt like the characters were better, and I felt like the action was way better. Even though I kind of like the story of the first one more, how he's just doing it all as revenge for his little dog. I thought that was like a really cool story concept, and it was definitely like the drawing point of the series for me, was that this assassin is just doing all this shit. He enters a world of pain all because of this pet, and I think that's really cool. And then the ending of part two for me was the best part, because it felt like it was going to lead into an epic third film, and it felt like it was a dark ending, especially for an action movie with this I don't know what you call it, this badass character. It's like, oh, how's he going to fight everyone around everywhere? Like, he's just walking all over the city, and there's just all these bad guys, and they're all coming for him, and it's like, what's going to happen? Well, then part three happened, and you're kind of like, oh, that's what happened. Part three, I was not very much of a fan of. I liked some stuff in it. I thought that there was some cool fight scenes at the beginning, and then I liked Halle Berry, her performance in the movie, even though apparently she wasn't even supposed to be in it. But I just felt like it was a little too convenient for him, like everything that happened, even though, he was facing consequences, and he was, having to pay for what he did, breaking the rules. It felt like he was just easily able to get out of these situations and, get to the next point in the mission. And then he meets with the Elder. The Elder character's kind of trash. And they have this whole thing where it's like, oh, maybe when he meets this powerful character that he'll have some sort of a positive outcome from that. Oh no, can't do that. And then they have this, what in my opinion is the best part of the movie, where he goes back to the Continental Hotel, and then he has this whole showdown with the boss of the hotel, and then the concierge. I thought that was clearly the best part of the movie. It also was the best action in the whole movie. And then he gets shot, and you think, oh, he's dead. And this is going to be like a typical trilogy ending where, oh, the main character has to die, because that's the only interesting way, apparently, to end a series. Like, or just, it feels like it's so predictable for that type of thing to happen in general in movies nowadays, where people don't really know an interesting way to end a movie, and so they'll be like, oh, well, the main character dies, and it's like, I don't think there's ever been a story that tops the tops. My favorite movie is Fright Night, and of course, in Fright Night, the main character does not die, and I just can't see any other story where a main character does die, like defeating that. Like that would just be ridiculous. So, I was like, oh no. And then they showed him and the Bowery King, and I was glad that the Bowery King came back after he was in part 2 for like 2 seconds. And I was like, oh cool, we're going to get to see a lot of him in part 4. So I did not like part 3, but I liked parts 1 and 2. Part 4, wow. That's all I have to say, wow. This is the movie that I wanted part 3 to be. This is exactly the fucking movie. And see, this is the most weird part. I thought that they had part 4 planned out all along, and that part 3 was just a sidestep, which was another reason why it felt bad to me, was because it felt like the stakes weren't very high in comparison to this film. But wow, I just, it's hard to even like get into this movie because it's 3 hours long of non-stop action. This is exactly what I want an action movie to be like. I really don't like a lot of action movies because they just do the bare minimum, and they'll have a story, it's simple, and then they'll have their couple action scenes that are they have to have as a requirement and for it to pass as an action movie, and then they just turn that in and say, there you go. This movie went above and beyond to have like almost like 2 movies worth of action in one movie. It really is going to be considered a classic. It is a lot better than Top Gun Maverick as well. So remember how much I liked that film last year? Well, that's already been beaten out by this. So pretty satisfied with this movie. There were only like 2 or 3 things that I didn't like, and other than that, I thought that this was a flawless film, and that like I just sat there watching it the whole time, and I was like, yeah, I have nothing to say. I have nothing to criticize here. It's too perfect for words. So the first criticism, and these aren't like big criticisms, they're just kind of like, eh. So first off, I did feel like the beginning was kind of slow. There's this whole like first hour where it takes place in Tokyo, I believe, or somewhere. I can't remember. And the whole concept is really cool because, well, I guess I'm going to get into spoilers now. The concept is cool because it's all revolved around how, they have the Continental in New York, and they have this hotel in Tokyo. And so I thought it was cool that they came up with this new hotel, and that, that was kind of like the opening action set piece for the first hour, basically. The whole hour was just spent at this hotel. And it kind of, I don't know, like it felt kind of slow though. And it felt like, okay, but it was all for setup. It was all perfect because it led to what happened after that. So I don't really care, but I do think that the beginning is kind of slow. But then again, like if you watch a 3-hour movie, you just have to know what you're getting into, You can't be like sitting in a 3-hour movie and complain about how it's taking up a lot of time because it's that's what you signed up for when you watched it. So number two, and this is something I already hinted at, I thought that the Bowery King was like hardly in the movie, and it was weird because at the end of last movie, he was like acting like he was going to mentor John and that he's going to help John out, and basically all he did was shelter him, and then John had all this time to just train, do whatever he wanted as long as he's in the Bowery King's hideout. And I thought that was really unfortunate because I really like the Bowery King character. He's kind of like the Penguin, but cool. And so I really wanted to see more of him in the movie, if anything. Like, it was surprising the fact that, you had Winston from the last movie who, he betrayed John because his hands were tied. And in this movie, he's like the star of the show. And then the Bowery King is just like in the background. Like he's hardly in the movie. And then number two, another character who I thought was missing was the fuzzball head girl. The fuzzhead girl. I can't remember her name. I guess you could just call her like Punk Girl or something. She was like this executioner girl from the third movie. She was like one of the main villains. Or wasn't she like an inspector or something? I don't know. I don't even think she was in this movie. I can't even remember seeing her in part 4. So that was another weird thing because her character was so villainous, and I was really looking forward to seeing John Wick take her down. But other than that, I mean, this movie is flawless. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. The first third of the movie is all taking place at this Tokyo hotel, and it's really cool because you have these characters who you care about that are fighting each other. It's not just one guy who you care about versus an army of people and then a guy you don't like. And I think that that's something that really separates this movie apart, is the fact that you care about these characters. You have this guy running the hotel and his daughter. You have Donnie Yen, and he has a daughter has a gun to her head, basically. And then you have John Wick himself, and it's like you want to see these 4 people make it out alive, but that, something bad could happen. And the villain of the movie was Pennywise, aka Bill Skarsgård, and I was so happy that I finally got to see a movie where Bill Skarsgård was in it, and he didn't just die in like the opening 30 minutes. Because like, it felt like every movie he would be in, you get really excited because he's a really good actor, and then 10 to 30 minutes in, oh, bye Bill. So he's in this movie for the most part. I mean, he's pretty much in the whole thing, and he is a pretty nasty villain. I mean, he is a very, very evil, sociopathic villain, and I liked him for the most part. I don't really know what his motivation was as much. Like, I don't really feel like I know him as well as the other characters in the film, the heroic characters. But I thought that he did the job very well as being this just, he wanted to do something really interesting, and that was he wanted to destroy the idea of John Wick and the idea of this assassin who could just break the rules, and then I just realized I contradicted myself, and I just told you guys his motive. But I mean, like, personally, like, does he have a backstory of something where he had a dog and the dog got killed? I don't know. Did Pennywise kill the dog? I don't know. So, that's something interesting to talk about, though. One of the things that I hated about the third movie was that it felt really stupid that, these assassins, they have work to do, and they have to, kill, like, actual targets, like, I don't know, bankers, politicians, whoever they're hired to kill. And for some reason, like, this one assassin breaks the rules. He goes through hell to atone for doing that. And he's like, I'll do anything. What do I have to do? And it's like, oh, it's not enough. Everyone in the whole world is just going to come and try and kill you. And it just felt kind of ridiculous and cartoony, the fact that these assassins are spending so much time doing this assignment on John Wick, who's like a retired assassin at this point. And it's like the whole business of being an assassin is being devoted to taking out John Wick. And it's like that felt really like kind of stupid to me. And I felt like, these assassins have things to do. And they're killing each other, too. I mean, this whole organization, the table, which we still don't know who is at the table, the members of the table, how many are there, what are their stories. But he killed the elder, too. I mean, it opens up the movie and he kills that elder character, and I was like, yay! I didn't like that character, so I'm glad that he got taken out. And that was like a weird sidestep. But what I liked was that in this movie, I think that the main idea was to give him a way out. I thought that was really cool. And they gave him this exception where he could challenge this head guy, Pennywise. He could challenge him to a duel, and if he won the duel, then he would get his freedom and he would be left alone. And I felt like, yeah, it's probably best to do that. Excuse me. Because at this point, no matter what would have happened with John Wick getting killed or not, this whole Assassins organization kind of looks like garbage. I mean, they really look like they can't get the job done. They look really pathetic. They look really petty. And, the whole thing with how they won't drop this with John Wick, and they're acting like, John Wick, you broke the rules, you broke the rules, you broke the rules. It's like, yeah, okay, I broke the rules. Like, everyone breaks the rules once in a while. Like, it's not the end of the world. So I really like that there was a way out, but still, this organization looks pretty bad. I mean, even if they succeeded in this movie, even if they had just taken him out at one point, if I were an assassin and if I were in trouble, I wouldn't even want to go to this organization because they're not reliable. They're untrustworthy too. Like, you go to their hotels and they're just really easy to get into and to infiltrate and start killing everyone. And it's like, ugh. I'd rather just, I don't know, go to the fucking Days Inn motel. So I really loved the main story concept in this movie. of him having this way out, and I really felt like it really redeemed part 3, because part 3 was so terrible, in my opinion. And then after the whole Tokyo thing, there's this whole sequence in Germany, I believe, where he is going to be allowed to do this duel challenge as long as he does this side mission where he kills this German guy. And it's really funny because a lot of the best parts in this movie are sort of like tributes to the past movies. And so there's this whole sequence in this movie where he's fighting the German guy, and the German guy is running away, terrified kind of, and he's being chased down in this nightclub, and it's very reminiscent to the sequence in part 1, which in my opinion that was the best sequence of part 1. And then they fight each other multiple times, and that's another thing to talk about too. In this movie, people take a lot of damage. It's almost like Looney Tunes level, but in a good way. Because if it were realistic, then it wouldn't be as fun to watch. It would be kind of like, that looks painful, that looks painful. So, I really love that sequence. I think almost the most out of the whole movie. I mean, it was really cool. It was really badass. And then I love the way it ended too, where he really had to do a lot to kill this German guy. And then after that, he's going to do this duel. It's sunrise. And then Bill Skarsgård does this really shitty thing where he nominates Donnie Yen's character to fight John Wick for him. And so then he plays dirty by saying like, oh, well, maybe he just won't make it to the duel. And you have this like warrior style sequence, which I was so glad that they tributed the Warriors in this movie, because the Warriors is a highly underrated masterpiece. And they had this whole, it was like an hour long sequence where he's fighting people through the city. He's just going to the different checkpoints. And that's another thing too. A lot of this movie really felt like a video game. Like there was even this one part where they put the camera on the ceiling and then they pointed it down at him, and it really reminded me of like a video game from the early 2000s. And he was unbelievably awesome. You know, he's just indestructible as a character, and that's what you want to see when you watch an action movie. You don't want to see a character who's just kind of like pathetic and weak. Like, I don't know how else to say it, because it kind of makes it seem like I want to see a character who can't get hurt. And, you know, John Wick gets hurt a lot in this movie. I just mean, you want to see a character who can handle themselves as well as John Wick does. That's my point. And I think my favorite part in the movie, you know, there's this really cool side character they came up with called Mr. Nobody. And he's this guy who has a dog, and he's a tracker instead of an assassin per se. And he ends up having to go after John Wick. And he's really, really smart, and he's really, really fair. And, you know, he's a really likable character. And there's this awesome part where he's got John Wick on the ground. Well, no, John Wick has him on the ground. And then there's this other big bad guy who is about to kill Mr. Nobody's dog. And John Wick has a choice between killing the guy who's trying to kill him and then killing the guy who's trying to kill the dog. And of course, he chooses the guy going after the dog. I thought that was a really, really good part. That was my favorite part of the whole movie. And then there's an even like cooler part almost where it revolves around stairs. And I swear I was like, how in the hell is he going to get out of this? Because he falls down like thousands and thousands of stairs. It looked really painful and really like, ugh, you would not want to be there. You know, I know a lot of people pretend like they want to be John Wick. I don't think so in this situation. But I really love that part because then Donnie Yen comes in and he helps John and they fight their way to the top together, even though they're supposed to kill each other at sunrise. And then we have the duel. And the duel is another epic part in the movie. And it ends in such a satisfying way because you think this is going to be kind of a crappy situation if John Wick wins and he can't kill Pennywise. But no, he finds a way to kill Pennywise, and it's just like, yes, this character, this is the character that I wanted to follow for 4 movies. And so I really, really love the movie. I don't really know what else to say, though, because, like, you know, I can only say it was a masterpiece so many times. And I really do think it is a masterpiece. I mean, it accomplished so much in this 3 hours. And it was packed full of awesome story, awesome characters. You know, even the stuff at the beginning, I thought I liked it. You know, I didn't think it was bad necessarily. It's just the pacing of it was kind of like, you know, it kind of made it feel like you were watching a 3-hour movie at first, and then the rest of it, you know, you felt like it was going by very fast. So overall, in terms of food, you know, I'm going to tell you guys about a story with from this week. Well, it is almost this past week in 2 hours. So on Wednesday, I got horrible food poisoning, and I got this Taco Bell meal that I wanted to eat, but I couldn't eat it because then I got really sick. And I was just sitting around like in misery and pain. You know, I lost 7 pounds from having that food poisoning in one day. So that was pretty hardcore food poisoning, let me tell you. And it was only because I took 2 bites of cereal. So that's how bad whatever was in the cereal was. And, I wanted to eat this Taco Bell meal, and it was just really frustrating to see like this perfectly good meal just sit there like, oh, what a waste. So, Sunday, you know, the day that I saw this movie, I got Taco Bell, and I got the same exact meal that I wanted to get that other time, with a Dorito Loco taco and chips and cheese, a grilled cheese burrito, a fucking blueberry freeze. And it was a perfect, awesome, epic meal. It felt so satisfying to eat this crappy meal after not being able to eat it on Wednesday and just being like, nyeh. So that's kind of what this movie was like for me. You know, part 3 was like getting the food poisoning and not being able to eat the Taco Bell. Part 4 is like you get to eat the Taco Bell and you get to watch an awesome movie. It's I don't know. I just think this movie it's definitely going to be talked about for a long time. Uh, I don't even think people realize. I just saw somebody today. There was some girl, and she said that it's only a movie for boys or some stupid shit like that. See, this is why I never take these SJWs seriously, is because they say stupid shit like that. It's like, oh god. Like, I couldn't even imagine, like, how could you even say that this is a movie for boys? Like, this is a movie for everybody. It's that good of a movie. It is so much better than Top Gun Maverick. I mean, remember the last 20 minutes of Top Gun Maverick, where it was just action, action, action? That's this whole movie. So, it's basically like a non-stop thrill ride from beginning to end. There's no agendas like in Scream 6. There's no stupid soap opera shit like in Scream 6. And people die too. They don't just get stabbed a million times and then it's like, oh, whatever. So this movie was fantastic. I really thought it was a great possible ending to this franchise. At the very end, they kind of had this thing happen, and I was like, I guess that's okay. But we all know that it's probably not the end. I mean, even if they never made another sequel, I could guarantee that they would try to make like I don't know, like an alternate universe movie or a prequel movie or a versus movie, like John Wick versus Dracula, John Wick versus, I don't know, your mom, something like that, where they could kind of cheat and work around whatever loopholes that they can find. That's what they always do. So, even though this really is the perfect ending to the series, in my opinion. So please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought of the movie, and then please subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more honest movie reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.